Yes, I mean you, dear listener. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this Warui Deshou podcast. We're so happy to have the pleasure of your company today. If you've listened to us before and like our show, you might be wondering how you can support us, since we won't take your money. This podcast will continue to be free, but if you'd like to show your appreciation, please consider leaving us a rating and review on iTunes, as those help our discoverability. If you don't use iTunes, that's fine too. You can follow us and like and share our content on SoundCloud and Twitter. Additionally, we love getting your feedback, positive or negative. Tweet us at Warui Deshou or email us at waruideshow@gmail.com. Whether or not it gets read on the show, I can assure you, we all read every tweet and email you send us. And once again, dear listener, we thank you so much. Now please, enjoy the show.
Warui Deshou.
So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
Hello everyone, welcome to Warui Deshou's Stream of Thought, where we got an appetite for destruction and we scrape the plate. I'm here, the Subtle Doctor, with my buddy, my ever-present pod compadre, Shadon. What's up, Shadon?
Everyone, I am sorry. I did say in the previous episode that as and when Franxx actually got good or became worthy of merit, true merit, I would roll out the apology box and prostrate myself before it in shame. And, well, let's just say that I should never become a betting man because that has literally happened in the space of one episode. So, while this is, of course, only an audio file, this is only audio, you can't see me doing this. Just imagine me, like, if you've ever seen in one of those films where someone's, like, prostrated themselves before the Emperor of Japan, and he's, like, full-on bowing, hands on floor, and that's me. Or maybe, no, I'll go one better and just say that basically Franxx did to me what happened to Yamcha in Dragon Ball. Smashed into the crater.
Again and again.
Yes.
You are hereby sentenced to join a special monastery that I'm founding, in which you are going to walk around for several hours of the day, chanting your apology, and then hitting yourself in the forehead with the soon-to-be-released copy of Darling in The Franxx Volume 1, Blue Raymond.
Ooh. I feel it's a just punishment for my lack of faith, shall we say.
How dare you? How dare you not believe in Papa to your utmost ability?
Well, I'm sorry.
All right, we got the apologies out of the way. Let's not dwell on that too long, because we have a lot to celebrate and be positive about here on Darling in the Franxx, Episode 5, Super Caliente Edition.
The anime strikes back.
That's right.
That's not actually a bad comparison, because the tone is actually surprisingly similar.
Episode 5. 4? Sorry, that's just a joke I enjoy. Anyway, Your Thorn, My Badge is the very appropriate name for this episode. And I was not able to get my hands on the screenwriter for this episode. I'm going to guess that means that it was a collaborative effort between the two head writers, but the episode director and storyboarder this time out. So, and you really can tell that she had a big impact on this episode. Her name is Noriko Takao. Like I said, she storyboarded and directed, so I think you really can give her a lot of credit for just how different this episode is and how well it comes together, what it emphasizes, the shot selection. She seemed to be pretty involved. Her previous episode directing experience, I should have gathered her previous storyboarding experience as well, but she's directed episodes for Idolmaster, and I'm assuming that's where the director knew her from, plucked her from, because he was very involved in Idolmaster. She's also done Clannad, K-On!, Canon, Lucky Star, and Haruhi. A lot of slice of life, a lot of very character-driven stuff with group dynamics, And I think that is very apparent when you watch this episode.
Yes. I have two things I want to say in response to this. First off, all the shows you've listed, I haven't really watched a lot of any of them, but I generally know about them, and from what I gather, the tone of those shows is usually quite light.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the tone of this episode is very much the calm before the storm.
Brooding, I would call
yes, it. Yes. It's absolutely thick in atmosphere and menace and dread. And for someone whose history or whose pedigree of work is very happy-go-lucky slice of life stuff, I think that this lady definitely has real... Sorry, go on.
Certain parts in Clannad notwithstanding, I've heard that Clannad will devastate you.
Oh, God. Well, all right, time to watch that later to self-flagellate. Yeah, there we go. No, but my point is that, like, I think that this lady definitely, Noriko, she's got some serious talent to go from doing that stuff to properly framing and articulating what you might expect would be a moment of triumph, because you'd think, Heroes pilots his trilogy for the first time and he's not, like, dead. So this is a glorious moment for the team. This is like the team, finally coming together. The hump's over with. Now we can truly, celebrate and be happy with what comes next. Nope. Things go downhill pretty fast. But the second thing I'll just throw out there, because I'm stupid and ballsy like this, is I'll just say, Noriko, for your hard work on this, if ever we bump into each other, drinks on me, because you've done a cracking job with this episode. You've actually saved the show for me. Franxx up until this point has floundered for me. It really has floundered. It struggled to be about anything meaningful. It struggled to truly get me invested in the characters. And when it did get me invested, it then just one-upped itself. It face-planted, in my opinion.
How dare you? Episode 4 was good.
And
3, I will grant you the first 3 were 2 being the nadir. The other 2 were, middling. Possibly, the design work putting them in the slightly above average category.
Yeah.
But people have heard already how we disagree about 4. Well, I don't need to go down that road.
Yeah, I mean, you've still got time to correct your own mistake and see the light there, Doc. But anyway, I kid. So yeah, no. Take it from us if you want the non-spoilery review of this particular episode. It's the show finally delivering on what it promised, and it finally delivers on world building, character dynamics. I'm so happy.
Well, I would say it delivered on this particular moment. It still has a ways to go in tying some things together and making certain thematic choices and motif choices, making them matter in a way that they kind of don't matter right now, and they're just sort of there for giggles.
Yeah, that's true.
But, taking nothing... Having said that, I don't want to take anything away from Takao. She did an amazing job, like you said, really capturing a mood at this moment in time for cringe plantation uncringe 13.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you want to get into it?
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay, so right out of the gate, we see early on that all is not right for our champion, our boy who grabbed himself a pair of wings to fly away on, ignoring the metaphor that was set up by the Chinese mythology in the opening episode. He mixes it up and grabs a pair of wings, but those wings are indeed killing him.
Are they, though? I have a theory on this.
Well, yes, right. That's the question. We see varying degrees of severity as the episode goes on.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah, I know. His condition. Initially, we just see that Goro hops out of bed and wakes him up, and he's been sleeping poorly. He's groggy after a full night of sleep. He's sweating and just does not appear well.
Yeah.
But he tells Goro, hey, I'm fine. Look,
yeah,
don't worry about it. I'm good.
Yeah.
And we'll, of course, return to this later.
Oh, but, how can we not? Jesus.
Yeah. The next scene we have is kind of a parasite group dynamic. It really, like, from the last episode, I think this is carrying on that good work of making them feel like a team.
Yes. That being said, there's something I noticed here that I was quite impressed by. So this is the same meeting room that we've now seen the group in a couple of times. First episode, and then I believe also in the third.
Yeah.
The way this is laid out, again, I may very well be reading too much into this, but to give you some context, this is the post-victory, like, heroes finally piloted Strelizia and everyone's, generally speaking, on board with it. Sorome's hyperactivity now is actually in service of enthusiasm rather than scorn.
Yes.
His personality shines through here in a positive manner, which I was very appreciative of. It makes him less cypherish, shall we say.
Hero shows some pretty adept people skills by dealing with him. Like, the easiest way to get a barking dog to be quiet is throw it a bone. And he
Pretty
goes
much.
over to Zorome and, you know, basically apologizes. He's like, I'm sorry for holding us back before. I'm going to do my best to pull my weight and not be a burden on the team. And all Zorome can do at that point is then say, very good. Yes, do better in the future. Ha ha ha. We are the champions. And
Indeed.
yeah, then he's no longer an enemy of Hero.
Yeah, and that's when the air horns start playing and everyone starts throwing beer cans around.
Except for Ichigo.
And Mitsuru, which is the point I'm going to get to.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing, right? What I noticed when I was watching this is that one of the establishing shots of this meeting room, and indeed has been used previously, is of the sofas that they have, the couches. And they're laid out in a circle. Now, the circle, in this scene, all of the characters, with I think the exception of just Mitsuru, are inside said circle, while he's sat on the outside, near a window, and doesn't say a damn word.
Cue up Stained. I'm on the outside right here.
Oh, God.
Oh, sad that we both know that song.
We're too old.
Fucking song. Oh, we are so old.
We're so old.
We were like angsty teenagers at a terrible time musically for angsty teenagers.
Well, let's just put it this way. We definitely weren't Franxx pilots in our youth, that's for sure, but that's foreshadowing for later. Anyway, the point I was going to make was that I think, again, this is another example of the direction here, using positioning of characters to show us to enhance the existing narrative, to reinforce what's being told to us. Because the team, generally speaking, are now being cohesive. There's not any really, nasty divisions like, petty bollocks going on anymore. But Mitsuru is not in that inner circle. He's positioned outside of it. And he is still, as we will learn later, pretty much very bitter about what's going on. And he has his own medical issues, as it happens, from piloting 002, which I will bring up later when we get to Hero's own problem, because I tend to like exploring the facts that we're given to us to help to speculate a bit. And it has to be said, like, at this point, that there's still rumours going around about 002. Now, one of the things that I think, is it Miku? Yeah, Miku, Zorome's partner, says. And I can't believe she said this, so I thought, well, I hope she never, tries to count beyond the number 10 in her life.
What?
Because she says, I guess the, free piloting and free size piloting with her and dead thing isn't true. And I was like, 1, 2, oh. Oh, dear. Yeah, a bit premature.
Poor Miku.
I'll allow it, because funnily enough, the cynic in me says, well, they didn't pay attention to the first time he piloted with Strelizia. They seem to completely forget that ever happened as evidence that he can do it. But I will also be fair, and I'll grant them that this is meant to be a moment of, a victory for them. This is a good moment. Like, everyone's on board now. Mm-hmm. Or are they? But I really did like this scene. I liked how it was shot, how it was framed. Again, positioning of characters to convey meaning.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Genuinely impressed.
It's awesome. Ichigo is, like, her face is sort of hidden in a lot of the opening shots. Like, she seems very downcast. And, we talked last time about her getting it together for the group. Mm-hmm. And this episode, it shows, like, that she hasn't necessarily, like, she can sweep her emotions under the rug, but they're still there.
Yeah.
She's still trying to take care of Hiro, still trying to be his friend, come to terms with like his new kind of role with 02. But of course, 02 is not necessarily gonna let her do that because she wants to monopolize Hiro entirely.
Yeah.
You know, my darling belongs to me, she says a couple times.
We do have to say that as much as we've, given Hiro shit for his attitude, 002 responds in the exact same way. And I think that this, I hope, is a hint that, like I said last time, that their crappy attitudes in general are going to be called out and examined, that they're not there because of tone-deaf writing. That's my hope. And before I forget, it should also be noted that in this meeting, 002 or 02 is not there. So even though she is now kind of part of the team, she still isn't. And that really does come into sharp focus later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy, and we'll talk about this as we go. Like, there's much more to 02 than simply the manic pixie dream girl archetype. She's not just a silly eccentric.
Exactly.
As I think has been hinted at on numerous occasions, but like, we get more than hints this time.
It does have to be said that 02's personality, and again, we got hints of this, but I think it's pretty much confirmed at this point, her personality is her armor. She is wearing it over something underneath that is wanting to be on cage, and at the same time, I think that she is also perhaps maybe slightly afraid of, or maybe concerned about, because we do learn later on not only about how she thinks, but also how she views other people, how she views the concept of humanity, and also that, well, the horns are not merely aesthetic, let's put it that way.
Nope.
No, they're not.
It is... there's credence, perhaps, given to her bloodline / genetic makeup rumors.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's got a really dangerous part to her.
Yes, indeed.
And it's funny that we can forget that, because what we're presented with is so often a carefree, silly, slightly, again, quirky girl. And early on, we were given facts and also shots of her danger and her like being a lethal component in this whole Franxx setup. Mm-hmm. But even I, throughout these past few weeks, like, have been forgetting that because again of her outward display. Her armor is so kind of like pervasive and so attention grabbing that even like the bare truth that was laid before us early on, like it's it was growing dim. The light of it was growing dim in the face of this this performance that she's doing.
Yeah, I think her and Griffith would get along really well. Let's just put it that way. Because much as with Griffith, you find her a compelling character that you're behind and you want to see do stuff. But you have to remember, like, I had to actually physically remind myself in the previous one that it is right that she did nearly kill Mitsuru for no good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a prick. And I don't think he's going to unprick himself anytime soon. But
the show began its noble quest to make me like him this episode, though.
Good luck with that.
I'll have to say, exactly. Ganba, Franxx.
Oh, God. But yeah, this is where we start to have a little bit of it peeled away. And I'm genuinely pleased to see that happen as well.
Totally. Like you said, for the establishing shot of the group, Mitsuru like gets up and walks off, I think.
He does, yes.
Which was very telling. And so we see, of course, 02 stroll into the breakfast hall and take Hiro away from his friend, his longtime friend Ichigo, and disrupt the rules, the seating arrangement, all that stuff. She does not care about that. Mm-hmm. And I think the most interesting part of this scene to me was not the girls feeding the guys, although that was fun. It was the prayer.
Yes.
Really, like, how do I say this? So a lot of times I think anime will put some religious symbolism out there, dress up its villains in popish clothes, show the sort of militaristic / theistic, like, church, government, army mishmash thing, but they won't follow through a lot of times with like making that stuff present in the everyday lives of the citizens and the people.
Yes.
You know, the ceremony we saw where they get kind of their official ranks, like that's the kind of thing that is, you know, you see a lot of. But like they have a blessing of the meal, and
Yes.
it's very quick. You know, it's didn't take a lot of time, but I thought, man, that really cranks up the believability and the world building, and it just adds so much, that little bit. The prayer before eating, which of course 02 spent that time pouring syrup onto all of her food.
Standard.
Lovely.
Yeah, I agree. This is what I wanted to see from the start, which is just elements of the world being built in that aren't strictly just visual. Because, as you've rightly pointed out, a lot of religious iconography often doesn't have any meat to back it up. It's simply there because it is. And to some extent, I get that, because there have been societies in the past that have appropriated religious symbols and icons without actually then having a religious bent. The Nazis did that.
Mm-hmm.
The swastika, for example, was actually, I believe, originally a religious icon. I would have to double check, but anyway. My point being, though, is that now we're actually seeing world building being delivered, and what's more, it's being delivered organically. Sorry.
No. I could totally, like, I'm just imagining this rigid, like, hello, main character. Let us accompany me to the church house in which we will read from a propagandized religious text.
Yeah. I mean, think of it this way, right? In science fiction and fantasy, there is an inherent conundrum that you have to solve, which is how do you deliver your exposition to the audience? Because the audience, when they pick up that book for the very first time, apart from what they see on the cover and the title, and maybe if they read the blurb on the back, will have absolutely no clue what's going on. So you have to explain things. You have to explain where they are and how the rules of the world work. Now, the problem with that is that when you do this, you have to do it in a way that doesn't come across as forced or breaks them out of the fourth wall, breaks the illusion of the fiction. So there's a lot of examples of this in media that I can point to. One of them that you'll probably know of if you've ever seen it, again, this is probably as old as the Stage reference, but if you heard, at least this is much better, is The Matrix. So, no, really?
Same vintage, though.
Same vintage, yeah. But here's the thing about The Matrix, right? The common thing to do in these stories is often to have a protagonist who serves as an audience proxy, who, when stuff is explained to them, because they don't know about it, we in turn learn what's going on. So in The Matrix, Neo learns from Morpheus throughout much of the film how the Matrix works and the rules are given to him. And because he doesn't know, it feels natural. It works.
Yeah. All the JRPG amnesiacs.
Yes, that's true as well. So that's one way of doing it. But what Franxx has done so far is that Hero doesn't serve as an audience proxy, and there isn't even really one at all, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They all, rightly, I would argue, go into this story knowing what they know, and they don't suddenly start talking as if they've never known it before, because that would be weird and strange. But then you have the opposite problem in that because Franxx hasn't explained anything up until this point, it's really grated on me that I keep seeing all these things happen, like the way the robots are set up, which we still don't get an explanation for, by the way, but that will probably come later. But now that we have like the religious elements being woven in here just a little bit, we start to see how this culture is coming about. You mentioned the seating arrangements. It is boys and girls being segregated here. They don't sit at the same table, but 002 just walks right in and, of course, pretty much sits on Hero's lap without a second thought of it. And I can't believe that I didn't even notice this in the first time they had the meal. I mean, actually, if I go back now, I could probably think, wait a minute, girls one side, boys the other. Oh yeah. My. Okay. So there you go. Because of the religious elements, you can then start to infer other things as well. You did mention, of course, that 02 doesn't give one iota of a crap about praying for Papa. She doesn't give two shits.
Nope.
But then, think of it this way, right? And again, I can't believe I didn't spot this. People way smarter than me must have seen this in the first episode when they got introduced to a codename. But recall that Hero has had a naming convention for his friends that, to varying degrees of strictness, he's stuck to, where he names them based on their codenames. So, forgive me if I'm incorrect on this, because I don't know the Japanese number for 0 or O. But I do know that 2 is ni. Ichi ni san. So, O-ni, Oni, demon. And therefore, she's the demon in God's kingdom here, because Papa, I think, is very much starting to be allegorized as God. Because they pray to him, after all.
They do. Or they pray for him.
They pray for him, yes.
Which is interesting, right? I mean, who are they praying to? I don't know.
Yeah. Is Papa the deity, or is there a deity who's looking after Papa? Is there Grandpapa? Who knows?
Grandpapa.
I don't know.
Perhaps it's the supply of energy, or I don't know. Who knows? But
the great Earth Spirit. Who the fuck knows? Ronald McDonald, could be anything. Who cares? But
I hope it's Ronald McDonald.
That's a Battlefield Earth reference, would you believe? Although not quite Ronald McDonald. But anyway, no, it's not the Cyclos in charge of this. Thank God for that. But the point I'm making is that this all happens naturally, and you'd learn new information, and you can learn new information from that information you've just learned. And then you start to get a better understanding of 02's role in this, because her presence, as you said, now does start to cause changes within the group dynamics. 2 of the other kids, I can't remember their names because they really haven't done much. They're the ones piloting the Russian-looking Franks with the Ushanka hat.
Right, right.
They sit together and start, giving food to each other.
Yeah, the lady that Zorome has his eye on. What are you doing?
They've got strange things going on. But this is the thing. We now have a baseline established for how the characters interact and how things are changing as they go along. And we get even more of this later when we get introduced to a different group of Franks pilots, which, in my opinion, is one of the best examples.
Oh, yeah, we can't. Let's hold off on.
Yes.
We have to wait, because that's a huge yes.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think we're starting to see that Hero and 02 together really have a chance to shake things up and disrupt this society. Just because, I mean, from a very young age, we have Hero doing these weird things that no other plantation child is doing, with the names. And then you have 02 bucking these other rules, and together, I think they're going to be a force of change. They're already, I think, making changes in the feelings and behaviors of those around them. And my theory on why they have segregated the boys and girls at table and why that they don't let them have names and everything is that they do not want the pilots having feelings for each other at all. They don't know what kissing is, but they're well entrenched in these terminology of sex, because that's the language of piloting the robots in this universe.
Yeah. And
because of what Hero did and how that group grew up together, and now because of 02 coming in like a wrecking ball, you have effects on people like Ichigo, like Mitsuru, Goro and Zorome and everyone, and how they feel about other people in their group. And that could lead to big changes later on, I think, and make this group in Group 13 possibly a really important group for breaking humanity out of the shackles of Papa's regime.
Yep, absolutely.
This is just a theory.
But that being said, I'm gonna just rewind very quickly something I've just realised is quite amusing. So, so the reason that all this is happening, by the way, I mean, this is not just happening in a vacuum. There is a background that Plantation 13 and Plantation 26 have met up at last to engage in the kissing sequence, which I couldn't believe that I pointed out last time, and then they actually do know what kissing is, but I'll allow the fact that maybe they don't know that, that's what it is. They just think of it as a mechanical procedure and literally have no clue about it being an intimate act. But what I did find funny is that the entire idea of the two plantations kissing is to transfer liquid magma between them.
Yes.
So I'm okay, exchange of bodily fluids, here we go. Oh, God. So, yeah,
Lovely.
That's the thing. That's a thing. In fact, I didn't mind that so much, though, because it was just a minor background detail. It wasn't the emotional climax at which that happened, shall we say. But again, that's all ground, so we'll not cover that.
Shortly after the meal scene, we do have the beginning of the water droplet imagery.
Yeah.
Which I guess is supposed to be, like, one reading of it is just Hiro's sweat, right? Because he's sick and walking around debilitated and tired. And I believe we get 3 of those scenes.
We do, yes.
Which corresponds to the number of trips he needs to make with what's-her-face before he dies. Which also corresponds to the number of days Christ was in the grave before he resurrected. Hero is Jesus.
Well, I don't want to.
You heard it here first.
I don't want to be a part of that religion, that's for sure. Well, they are Hero's sweat drops. That is what they are. But you could also take the first one to be Ichigo's tears, because it cuts immediately after her speaking into that.
You're right.
But this is an example of the mood being set up here, because we see Hero just in the gents' bathroom, looking at himself in a mirror, and you can see that he's sweating and convulsing, and he's obviously in a bad way. And I've generally, up until this point, been very sceptical of all of the bad stuff that's been said about 002.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't... I tend to believe what I see rather than what characters necessarily say. And indeed, there's still certain elements of what's said about her that's not, I think, necessarily true. I still don't buy, for example, that she's got Klaxosor blood in her for a variety of reasons. But she's certainly not human either, or rather, she's not genetically fully human. So we now, of course, start to see Hero start to fall apart, and oh boy, yeah. Is it the next scene, I think, where Goro finds out?
No, this is not the scene where he finds out the full extent. We do have a scene of him pushing off responsibility onto Ichigo, the same way that fucking Hero pushed responsibility off onto him. So yeah, none of these kids want to have difficult conversations, but they are kids. So
well, Ichigo does. She has probably one of the most difficult I can imagine.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, yes, she is I think she's a real leader, very admirable character.
Yeah, in fact, I would argue that at present she is the most compelling character in the show, apart from 02. Like, 02 is enjoyable for entertainment reasons, but the real character stuff is happening with Ichigo. She is struggling with, coping with as a leader, growing up, and also still, like, dealing with her own feelings. She reminds me a bit, and although the context differs, she reminds me a bit of Ranker from Frontier. Dealing with, feelings versus duty and what she wants to do.
Her man chose a pink-haired girl over her. Yeah, it fits.
I nearly spat my drink out because I didn't realise that. Shit! Oh, fuck me. Oh, she gets green hair now. That's it. I'm walking out of this anime forever. That's amazing. I didn't even think of that.
She should get green hair. Then we'd be all in. We'd be locked in forever.
Oh, God.
You say she's the most compelling character, but the next scene, we have Mitsuru popping Claritin in the bushes.
Oh, he's getting Quaaludes going.
He's got allergy problems.
Well, are they allergy problems?
No, those pills just resemble Claritin aesthetically. But no, clearly there's some sort of... well, I say clearly, like, the boy has psychological problems, but also it's psychosomatic as well, right? I mean, they're affecting him physically. He's, like, gripping his chest. He's shaking. Yeah. So he's popping pills to try to deal with it. And I was worried for Kokoro. Wow. I think that's a Japanese word for heart, which is funny. Okay. I was worried for Kokoro when she happened upon, Mitsuru using there in the bushes. I was very worried because the music got very tense. The moment was grim. There was a lot of shadow. And she said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I was like, "No! Leave her alone, you bastard." Thankfully, he was just grouchy with her and he didn't do anything to her. But yeah, he's like, "Are you pitying me? Fuck you."
Yeah.
And, she's just a sweet, well-meaning girl, it seems. so he can fuck right off.
Fair enough. Do you think that what he's currently going through is indeed just PTSD, we'll call it, or trauma, or is it perhaps something a bit more physical?
You mean he rode with her once, and so he's got something?
Yeah, because this is going to be important later for the
I
speculation that I'm going to go into about what's actually happening with Hiro.
Yeah.
Because let's be frank, let's just get this out of the way right here and now, okay? Hiro looks like, at the end of the episode, that he is probably going to be dead within the day. But, and I think this is key to know, this is, of course, only episode 5 of a 24 episode thing. So him dying is obviously not going to happen, although if it actually did happen, and I'm not saying this because I don't like the character, I'm saying this because I would genuinely be surprised by it, that would be quite the thing. That would genuinely take me aback.
It would be a move.
It would be a move indeed. But here's the thing about a lot of fiction. When you consume a lot of media, or even just a little bit of it, you eventually do become savvy to certain things. Like, you'll go into it, like, say, any Marvel movie. Like, the next Captain America movie that comes out, the odds are fairly good that Cap is going to live. They're not going to kill him off. Or you watch any... Generally speaking, unless you're Masaki Yuasa, funnily enough, your characters will live to fight another day, and they will win. And it will be a net positive. So Hiro dying, I think, is about as likely as me crapping a gold egg.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
It's funny, though. Like, I agree with you, and yet, like, I still feel, like, my heart in my throat, and, you know, I feel a tightening in my chest when he's going to pilot with her, and, I mean, what's going to happen? Like, it's very successful, even though we have this, like, you know, plot armor knowledge in our brains.
Well, this is the point. The destination, we are already fairly confident on, but it's the journey that needs to be compelling in a lot of fiction like this. And Franxx finally has that, because this episode is saturated with dread and tension. I did say the calm before the storm for a very good reason, because they have a mission coming up that they learn of later, and everything about it suggests it's going to go south real fast.
Yeah.
Not just because of what they don't know about each other, because bear in mind Hiro's condition and Mitsuru's, sorry, for that matter, are not really known to the rest.
They're really bad.
They're not really known to the rest of the team. They don't know what's happening to them. So you've got 2 potential pilots who need to be benched. And then what they do learn, or do know is coming to them, which is to say that, getting a little hair cells here, but there's going to be about 150 Klaxosaurs going to attack the plantations head on. And in case you forgot, they couldn't handle either the popcorn Klaxosaurs that were not really more than rats, or the single giant sandworm one, without Strelizia's help. They've, generally speaking, not succeeded.
The Dollar Shave Club edition.
Yes. The cutthroat one. So, suffice to say that, again, without even stating it's the audience, you're being told things and you remember things that happened previously, and the characters themselves are aware of this. So, even though you feel fairly confident that Hiro will live, in fact, I'm going to say it's absolute certainty, you still are concerned about what's going to happen, because no doubt things are going to go really badly.
Yeah, what will the damage be?
Oh, it's going to be catastrophic, I'm fairly certain of it.
Oh, boy, yeah. Shortly thereafter, the Mitsuru part, we have 02 uttering for the first time in the episode. I think she says twice, "Hiro belongs to me."
Yep.
Or my darling belongs to me. And then before what I think is like a pivotal scene for the entire series.
Yep.
Like right before there, we get what I think is a hilarious moment, because it might be the most like obvious, like sirens, like air horns, arrows pointing to the screen. Look at the symbolism. Like they have Hiro look up and see a butterfly caught in a spider's web.
Yeah.
And a spider crawling toward it. And I'm just like, okay. Like, yes, put the camera on this exactly. Like, focus in on, like, and Hiro understands, like, and furrows his brow. I'm like, oh man, like, this is just like, we don't need this. We all understand what's happening here. This is like the most, like, blatant of the blatant, like, just Yeah, I mean, we all understand what's happening here, and it made me laugh.
It could have been worse. It could have been a Black Widow.
Also, is that a loaf of bread that the spider web is over? It looks like a giant bun. I don't know what those things are supposed to be on the wall.
I don't even know either. If they wanted to do this properly, what they should have done, to borrow in with the flower analogy, is have a fly caught in a Venus flytrap.
Or, I mean, whatever you do, just make it off center, like in the background, you know, or blurred out or something. Like, don't. I mean, there's just no need to be that like ham-fisted with that imagery. But moving on from that, we get like I had to pause the episode and tweet about it because this was a holy shit moment for me. Like,
yeah,
you have already you broke the seal on it earlier by mentioning. So part of the kissing of the plantations is that 26 has a team of pilots of young kid pilots that are here to help their contemporaries with the energy transfer and the operation that you alluded to earlier. And they are having a talk with the kids from 13. And Zorome, young Zorome fields a question: have any of the children in your plantation become adults? And it hit me over the head like a 2x4. Yeah. Like, I mean, I was not prepared for that. It was unbelievable. It was a gut punch. It was galaxy brain. It was like, holy shit! Like, you've been hiding this from me, Franxx. you've been holding out on me here, buddy.
I really love this scene for a couple of reasons, and not least of which is, of course, what you've mentioned. But this is the other example of good world building.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that 13 is like part of a wider world, of a system that humanity has created, and the contrast with the group from 26 and the group from 13 and their attitudes and what they believe and their general demeanor, even like the way they look and walk, like is so illustrative and of everything, and gives of the characters and the world, and gosh, we get so much good information from their exchanges.
Yes, we had 02 come in previously, who was the extreme outlier on one end of the scale, and these kids are the baseline on the other, with our heroes stuck in the middle. I mean, this is deliberate by us, it's not a criticism. I cannot remember a single distinguishing feature about any of the actual Franxx pilots from 26. Not one. There's guys and girls, and they're all cookie cutter, bland as wallpaper paste people. But that's intended.
Yeah. One of them has a head bandage. The other one has like a Royal Air Force haircut.
You know what? I'm going to have to now put together a music video of Aces High to this from Iron Maiden. That would be sick. That would be great. But this again is an example of how you do world building, because this is being delivered to the audience without coming across as forced. You can infer, without having it clubbed over your head, about these people being the standard and what it means for our characters to be different, and you can start asking questions from that. And indeed, the characters themselves have a sense of self, where Zorome, for example, or the fact, and this admittedly is a bit odd to me because I don't know how this would be true, but one of the other Franxx pilots from the 26, one of the cookie cutter kids, he points out, your Franxxes all have unique designs. I'm a bit curious as to why. Now, there isn't an explanation I can think of offhand that makes sense, because I don't think the kids themselves designed the Franxx, or why they were designed for them. I mean, the answer is the fact that we want to, of course, have good toy sales. Sorry. Sorry. No. That's. I'm sure there's a perfectly valid reason somewhere. But these are things that make sense to be asked. And I'm glad that at least Franxx.
My theory is that it has something to do with the emotions and just the nature of the pilots themselves when they combine. But we saw them combine for the first time, and the Franxx were already built as they were, so never mind. Scratch that.
But this is the thing. I'm glad that the characters actually now are developing, or not developing, but showing self-awareness. They're testing the rules of the world themselves and trying to, understand what's going on, and that in turn conveys information to the audience. This is good world building, and that to me, is all the more staggering that we had so little of this in the previous 4 episodes, and now we're getting the opposite end of it. It's like being jolted with electricity. Like you said, being hit over the head with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's here. I'm just a bit astounded that if they had the capacity to do this, that they didn't more organically weave in bits and bobs earlier. But you know what? I'm not going to complain. I'm glad it's here now, as opposed to the opposite scenario where I'd just be like, ugh.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't even know what I prefer, right? The kind of steady creeping along of an interesting thread, or like just the complete shock to the system that was this, that I was not ready for. I mean, when Zorome asks, like, he's so expectant and hopeful, and the 26 group just kind of looks at each other and like, oh, he doesn't know. And they whisper and they're like, nope, none from our side. And it's like, there's clearly more that they know, but they don't want to tell. And like, yeah, I mean, and the difference between the two groups, like group 26 looks like they look like beaten dogs. They look like just they've been through hell. And, you know, group 13 is a bunch of fresh-faced, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like, ready to go out and save the world, and they're Franxx, and it's, God, it's just, it portends for some very, very interesting stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so after this, Goro sees the full deal, right? Unzips Heroes.
God.
We had heard earlier that he had a high yellow blood cell count.
Oh, that confused the fuck out of me.
I know, and that this is apparently the exact opposite of what happens to most people when they pilot with 02. I guess they get a drastic reduction, and he has too many. But the physical effect of this is not yellow; it's very, very blue. This,
to me, right? I don't know if this is true in the United States, but in the United Kingdom a couple of years back, there was a change. I know this is going to sound like a tangent, but bear with me. There was a change to the law about advertisements and packaging for cigarettes. And they would always put on a picture of something incredibly disgusting, like a blackened lung, or, you know,
yes,
people's teeth broke. And I thought, holy shit, put what's on Hero's chest on a on a pack of cigarettes, and no one will ever smoke again. Like, I'm no doctor here. I am not qualified in medical terms in any way apart from first aid and the, you know, art of bullshit. But I'm going to give you my prognosis on Hero as it stands right now from the way he looks. He is fucked. He is up shit creek without the paddle. But this is the thing that I wanted to bring up in relation to Mitsuru. And also to 002's question. Now, you said that this is not usual for what happens with 002. For one, Hero is still alive, so that's a thing. But this doesn't happen to Mitsuru either. And yet, we later learn at the end of the episode that 02, she sees this, and she seems to know what it is. Or at least she has a very familiar attitude about it that doesn't befit what you might think.
Ugh.
I'm very curious as to what's going on here, and that being said, though, the actual drama from this is not just, of course, the fact that Hero is going out there half dead, and he, again, this actually is illustrative of his attitude towards 02, and that if he dies halfway through, well, Strelizia will be at best tiger mode when it was previously, or worse, completely inoperable, and she's probably going to die as a result. So, you know, might want to go and get that checked out.
Well, she did okay with a corpse in there and then an unconscious Mitsuru. I think she'll be fine.
This is true.
But the threat is admittedly much greater.
Oh, yes.
Coming up here.
And the reason this is happening, these Klaxosaur attacks, is that because they're doing the magma transfer, and as we've established previously, again, nice world building here, Klaxosaurs are attracted to magma energy. So when you've got a full-blown transfer of the stuff between two plantations, they're going to come in packs. So the plan is, because the Klaxosaurs are going to attack the connecting bridge, the 26 pilots are going to be in the front line, with the 13 pilots, our heroes, in the rear, with one exception, and that is that Strelizia is going to pilot solo on the opposite side of the connecting bridge in case any come and attack from the rear. So, while indeed Strelizia can hold its own pretty well, indeed it actually feels a bit overpowered, to be quite honest. Can we get a nerf in the next patch, maybe, you know?
Yep, a rebalance, please. The Klaxosaurs need to be not so shit tier.
Yeah, I'm in agreement here. They're just trash, basically. They're not even raid bosses, these guys. But the point is that Strelitzia is flying solo here, and if Hero does drop dead, he's going to leave 0-2 at a significant disadvantage if they do start to get attacked en masse. And
yeah,
he hasn't obviously considered that, which again is indicative of his attitude towards her. But she in turn has the same attitude towards him, because she doesn't say to him, you do realise you look like you have stage 99 lung cancer here.
Well, she clearly knows something, right? I mean, either she knows that this is not the end for him, or she really is as callous as she has shown at other points in this show.
Who can say? Who can say?
It's hard to know, right? I mean,
yes.
There's a lot of evidence that she just does not give a fuck about anybody except herself. But, I mean, we've seen that she is a woman that puts on performances, that wears personality armor, that wears masks. And, I mean, part of me thinks, and I guess this is just me being hopeful or me being an anime watcher, that, like, apart from herself, she actually does care about Hero. And she knows something, that there's some kind of possibility. Like, it's not just that, if he dies, and he just didn't live up to the expectations I had for him. I think she's gambling on him overcoming this in the way that she's aware of is possible.
That would seem to be so. She's certainly getting a level of ambiguity that is welcome here, and again, important for us to remember as the story progresses, that for all that, I might be dismissive of people's concerns about her and the fact that, generally speaking, it comes across as rumour-mongering nonsense. There's an old saying in Britain, which is there's no smoke without fire. So, that being said, I do have to point out that I did find this a bit incredulous, but again, this is my perspective and not the perspective of the character in question. So one of the cookie cutter kids finds out that 0-2 is piloting Strelitzia and loses his shit something fierce over this. Because apparently 0-2 piloted Strelitzia with a previous pilot in a battle with these kids and got his previous partner killed.
So he believes.
So he believes. But a couple of things I need to note here to try and get a more objective handle on this facts. One, it takes two to tango in a Franxx. So while 0-2 was indeed in Strelitzia, who was with her? Who was the person piloting? To what degree did they have control over 0-2 or vice versa? We don't know. But it's not, whatever happened was not so fault. And the thing that actually happened was that she moved out of position. She didn't go berserk and kill them. She just went off and went elsewhere. Now, disobeying orders, that's in her character, yes. But again, we're not seeing the objective picture, which is fine. And that is actually a good thing, because again, it reinforces doubt.
It does, because I can imagine her taking that risk and not caring about the risk so much.
Yeah.
And reprioritizing what she thinks is important in that moment to go off and achieve some kind of total victory rather than protecting the backs of, like, her fellow allies. Like, I can see that. I mean, like you said, like, all we have is this guy's biased testimony. Like, we don't know. So yeah, this is a really, really great scene. I think a lot of drama in this.
Well, what we do see is the fact that 0-2 could not give less of a fuck about what he has to think. She is so cold.
So she claims to not remember.
She is so cold. Like, weaklings just die. I'm like, true, but maybe you might not want to deliver it in such a cold and, sandpaper way. Like, that's rough. Yeah. But that, again, is consistent with her character. But it reminds you that as much as you might enjoy her, feeding Hero syrup-covered bread or whatever, or enjoy the fact that, she's provocative and generally confident and cool and such, there is a vicious streak to her, and you need to keep that in mind.
By the way, at the beginning of the scene, I'm not sure if this is the subtitles or if this is actually sort of inherent in the dialogue, but they talk about the Klaxosaurs coming, and they say they are 3,000 away. But 3,000 what? I'm not sure what the unit of measure is, and it's fine. It's actually fine if there isn't any. I just found that, like, chuckle worthy.
Funnily enough, there's actually a dialogue issue I'll bring up later, but they do, to give some context here, the Plexosaurs are going to arrive in approximately 36 hours from the point of that meeting, of that briefing. So, again, calm before the storm. They know it's coming, but there's nothing they can really do right now other than to prepare and be
other
ready
than get
for it.
emotionally fucked up. Because that's what happens.
And just to bring back to Goro here, he, of course, now learns about Hiro's ridiculously debilitating condition. It looks like he's been infected with the black goo from Prometheus.
It looks like, a tiny alien is going to burst forth from his chest. It's a protruding blue heart. It's rough looking, yeah.
Oh, it does look grim. But the thing is, Goro now knows this. He is burdened with this knowledge. Yeah. So the sensible thing to do would be that he would immediately go and tell Ichigo. Now, the thing is, though, that's a dynamite thing to do right there. That's a powder keg for a variety of reasons. Betrays Hiro's trust, gets her involved, and she is currently struggling, as we'll soon learn, separating her emotions and feelings for Hiro from her duty as a leader. Yeah.
And we get some good scenes from Goro in this episode. I still think that there's more to come from him. I would like to see more kind of personal motivations and stuff. But yeah, like, he clearly, like, the show establishes, like, that his relationship with, like, he's not just buddies with Hiro because he's buddies with Ichigo. Like, you know, that trust is important to him, and that's why he doesn't, call the equivalent of 911 immediately.
Yeah. And yet, by him not doing anything, he is also now going to be guilty in part of anything that goes wrong. Because, again, to remind you, Strelizia is the one defender on the rear. If Strelizia falls or is taken out of action, hundreds of people could die. I mean, we still haven't seen the regular person in the show, annoyingly, but whatever. I'll set that aside. I've banged on about enough. But he is now guilty if anything goes wrong because he has the opportunity here to say something. And yeah, 02 may very well parrot on about, he's fine and all that. But this is an operation that could very well get all of them killed and lead to the destruction of both plantations. So the sensible thing to do would be to tell Ichigo, but he doesn't.
The kid he's a kid, he has no perspective.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, and I'm not going to hold it against the show, because I think this is actually probably a reaction a lot of people would have in his shoes, particularly if they are a close friend like they are to Hiro. And then, on top of that, not only if he doesn't tell him is there material consequences, Ichigo will be betrayed as well when she inevitably finds out. Yeah. This is really good build-up and drama and tension.
I can't wait. I cannot.
I'm stunned.
Ugh.
I'm absolutely flabbergasted that a show that I had written off as being puerile, juvenile horse crap is actually setting up the domino thing I said previously. We've got a whole powder keg worth of stuff that's going to detonate.
I mean, I think it did it earlier when, it seeded Mitsuru and Ikuno, like, the fallout that could happen. Like, both individually and when they come together, like, it sets some stuff up there, but it's doing an even better job of that here now.
That is, yes, absolutely. And we've not even got yet to the next scene, which is...
Man, this is, like, the best one. This is... All of this is just where like, this scene, or... I can't decide whether this scene or the Zorume asks about adults is better, but God, this one is so good. So, like, I think it begins for me even before they go to sleep, when I think there may be more, but I know it's Hiro, 02, Ichigo, and Goro. Mm-hmm. Possibly, there are others, because Zorume pipes up. Goro has been, of course, told to keep quiet by Hiro, but I think he is trying to still voices objections and, like, possibly, like, rustle up some support for keeping Strelizia out of action among the group. Mm-hmm. To be a conscientious objector here without giving everything away about what he knows. And so he says, like, yeah, I agree with the guys from 26. Like, Strelizia should not be part of this. What do you think, Ichigo? And he's banking here on Ichigo and her feelings for Hiro and those bubbling up and her voicing an objection, but she just says, no, we need Strelizia, it'll be fine. And then it cuts to Zero Two's eyes, and you know she knows that Goro knows. And they are, I cannot tell if it is a person, if Zero Two here is, if this is a look of someone who feels guilt, rage, murderous intent. I don't know, but there's just so many feelings there, and that look on her face. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we transition to the nighttime talk.
Oh, before we do, there's something I want to contextualize before we get into this scene, which is that there's a scene earlier on with Hero and Zero Two at the lake where they first met. And, they're not at the lake, that's later, but they do have a scene earlier on in which she asks about rain. And
oh, right, yes. Mm-hmm. Can you make it rain, lol?
Well, if he withdraws all his money that he's been saving all his life and starts palming it off, I reckon he might make it rain for a half a second, perhaps. I don't know. But the point being is that Hero explains that it only rains when Papa says it is. Says it will, when Papa decrees.
Right.
The weather's controlled inside here. Again, God allegory and all that. So that's important for what happens in a bit. Because if it is true that Papa is controlling this, he's watching very closely and he has got a real sense of dramatic timing. Let's put it that way.
That's really funny. It's not just a cycle, it's Papa saying, wait for it, and storm.
It's the Truman Show.
Yeah. Yes. It would not shock me.
Yes. So, anyway, you were saying about the scene at night.
Ooh, yes. So, but it turns out Goro's sort of objections have not fallen on deaf ears, and Ichigo drags Zero Two out of bed into the courtyard ? the yard, the outside play. I don't know, whatever. Outdoors.
Just outside the greenhouse that I think Mitsuru was in earlier.
So, and she starts saying, look, take care of Hero, okay? Like, this is dangerous. Please don't put a burden on him.
She's pleading with her.
Yeah, like, don't push him too hard. And as you said before, Zero Two is very cold to her and says, look, Darling belongs to me, okay? I do what I want with him. He has decided to ride with me, and you just need to stay out of it. It's our thing, okay? It has nothing to do with you. And then we have our, moment of that could take people out of it, in which Ichigo asks, are you trying to suck him dry?
Let me tell you something.
And it's that double, it's that same thing as last episode of, like, you're meant to laugh, but also not to laugh.
But Doc, a couple of things. First off, I didn't mind so much because in some way that is allegorical for what has happened previously. Like, literally, Mitsuru was a husk. There was nothing left of him. He was barely alive. So I'll allow it.
I would argue the same symbolic weight can be given to the, like, I'm going deeper into you.
We'll come back to this another time off cast because oh god, that's going to be forever. I like wedge between. I don't know. Anyway, well, the point is, I actually read in the Discord recently, and I think this is something that Liquid Determination posted. Shout out to them if they happen to be listening. To what degree this is true, I don't know, because I ultimately do not understand a single word of Japanese apart from numbers and certain other small bits and bobs. But apparently, that is not the actual intent of the phrasing in Japanese. The intent is something more to the effects of not using him, as opposed to how it's written.
Well, sure. I would wager that, like, there's that happens a lot in those scenes, in the double entendres, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but I think the intent was maybe that it wasn't meant to be a double entendre in its original language, and the subtitles are not entirely accurate. Now, again, I don't know this for certain. I could very well be wrong on this, to take what I'm saying as a pinch of salt here. So this is what I've heard secondhand. But if that's the case, then oh dear. Well, let's just say that sometimes it is a good idea as a translator not to pretend you're doing adaptation. Let's put it that way. They are very much separate things, and sticking to the letter sometimes is a good idea, shall we say?
I don't know. I mean, it seems in keeping with everything else that's happened. Like,
that's true, but there's a time and a place for this stuff, and I think that phrasing it like that when she's pleading for, Hero's life here basically is, again, depending on your own. We've gone over this. You get my point. I didn't mind so much this time around.
Yeah, I mean, these people. I just think the people are working with a different language, and it can be quite funny because in our language game, it only refers to like a lot of the things they're saying, like sex and sex acts. But in their game, there are other objects of which those words are the referent. So I don't know, but yes, like you said, we can hash this stuff out another time. But that happened. No idea if it's how sort of what the intent was of the original language. But moving on. So once 02 says something particularly cold, like, Ichigo says, hey, Hiro could die here. And 02 simply says, well, if he does, then...
Haters gonna hate, bitch!
Yeah, he'll have just let me down. Like, he just won't be everything I thought he was. And then Ichigo just slaps the shit out of Hiro, knocking off her...
How out of Hiro?
I'm sorry. Slaps the shit out of 02. A Freudian slip.
No, you want that to happen, and so do I.
Wish fulfillment.
But no, yes.
But no, she slaps 02.
Cold cocks are hard.
Yeah, like her hair accessory falls out.
Uh-huh.
Like she tumbles over and, and she says like, you're not human. It's true everything they say about you. You're awful. And then we get the eyes and the horns glowing red, in which 02 like slowly raises her visage and says like, human, what's human to you here in this place?
Captain, I've sighted a plot point off the port bow.
Yes.
It's coming in fast. No, first off, Ichigo has some fucking cojones.
Yeah. The dynamite in small packages thing happening.
Exactly. Maybe she doesn't know how strong 02 is. I mean, if it really did come down to a fight, 02 would leave her as a smear on the floor.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
But wow, I was like, holy crap! You go, Ichigo. No, seriously, because again, 02 is. You may very well have, feelings towards Hiro of the kind that I have, which is intense hatred, desire to see him dead, falling off a cliff, not only useful as a meat shield, you can have those kind of feelings towards him. But as it's presented here, 02 is, she's vile. She is vile about this.
Yeah. I mean, she has had no love for Ichigo in the past, but
that smirk?
Yeah, she's pretty cruel here in this scene. Again, no idea how much of it's a put on with her.
Yes,
I don't know, but
she could very well be being this way to push people away. That could be it. Who knows?
Don't get close to me. Don't slap me. Don't make me angry, right? Don't, because look. I mean, what was bubbling beneath the cold exterior was incredible. I shuddered, like the glow of her eye, it was tremendous, just tremendous.
02 is between Ichigo and the greenhouse, and so she is her face is lit in shadow at this point, as opposed to Ichigo's, which is of course in full bloom because the light is cascading over her. Yeah. And you then of course get to see that 02's eyes and her horns are now glowing a bright red.
Oof.
And she, of course, asks, what does human mean, and does it truly mean to be human? And I have to wonder in some way if that little head accessory of hers is actually not just decoration, but is a limiter of some sort.
Could be, yeah.
Could be. Which, maybe it's a bit hackneyed, I suppose, to have characters who ultimately do have this other side to them, and then they try to fight to find their humanity in some way or another. Or, in 02's case, devil may care, I'll be who I want to be. I mean, again, I'll make the reference again. I'm sorry to say, folks. I make this reference only because the core concept of said reference I think has merit if it were executed properly, which is elf and lead. Because
Oh, brother.
no,
I thought you were going to say Nier.
No. I'm deadly serious.
I was hoping you would say Nier.
Well, I suppose there's a bit of that too, actually. But I am deadly serious when I bring up Elfen Lied as a point of comparison, not because Elfen Lied, I think, inherently is a flawed concept, but rather it was just utterly mangled beyond recognition in its execution. I think that dealing with the subject matter of people, particularly young people who've had toxic upbringings and have been abused, and then examining them, rediscovering their humanity and rediscovering, warmth and joy is a good thing. I think that's an admirable narrative, even if it can be hokey or overdone. And I'm wondering, therefore, if what Zero Two is saying about, what truly defines a human is not just a reflection on herself, but a reflection on the way people have treated her in the past.
I absolutely think, this is a woman who has been outside of this plantation. She has seen people die. I think she has seen Papa. She has seen the world and seen how humans treat each other from the top of the food chain or social strata on down to the bottom. And I think that comment, I would wager, is loaded with that. I mean, it's funny, in that scene, 02 is tall and, woman-like, and Ichigo has this giant gown on that is stretching nearly to the floor. And it's funny, but I think it just accentuates, she is still a child.
Yeah.
Leader, though, that she is, she's still very young and naive and inexperienced.
Yep, absolutely. So, this is going to, I presume, I'm going to throw it out here right now. Let's play some Franxx bingo here. Future episode, Delphinium and Strelizia fight. Calling it.
Oh, undoubtedly.
They are going to fight, and it's going to be, I would argue, Franxx's equivalent of Dyson and what was the other guy's name from Macross
Oh,
Plus?
Gold.
Yeah. It's going to be the Dyson and Gold fight. I'm calling it. And Goro's going to be there Ichigo, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you fighting? I'm fuck you, Goro. Shut the fuck up.
Exactly. The boys will be no. The only question will be, will it be dampened by someone being under, mind control or some nonsense?
No, I want it... When I say the Gold and Dyson fight, that is exactly the context I want it to happen. I want it to be the big robot equivalent of an actual emotional brawl. The kind that people sometimes need to have in order to straighten out their differences. That's what I loved about that fight in Macross Plus, because it literally was just two people having a fist fight, but because of their differences and their anger to each other.
The Narukami Hanamura socialing match.
I was literally about to mention that. So that's what I want it to be like, and I'm damn near certain that fight is going to happen, and I just hope it's given the context it deserves.
Yeah, that will be amazing.
All in all, what a superb scene! The absolute capstone of this episode, I would say.
Yeah,
easily.
Yeah, and there's a really good scene after that too.
I know,
where Ichigo and Goro are talking. And the dam within her bursts. She doesn't know what to do. She's weeping. She's I'm supposed to put the team first, but I care about Hiro. She just keeps saying his name over and over. She clearly loves him. He's very important to her. I don't know if the nature of her love for him is familial, romantic, something in between.
It's love, though. Enough said.
Friendship. But yeah, she loves him. And as much as Goro also, cares for Hiro, I think something about that was unsettling to him, because he experienced some new feelings there of wanting to comfort her, but then knowing he probably couldn't, and also being jealous that it was not him, perhaps, that she was calling out for. He pulled back and just said, "What is this feeling?" as he shook, and that was such a powerful scene. And poor Ichigo is without Hiro. She just seems so alone, and I feel so sad for her.
Yeah, in some respects, in hindsight, this actually, it doesn't absolve, but it helps me understand a bit more Goro's own idiocy in how he handled the post-Hiro and Ichigo piloting cock-up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with all that we've learned about these characters so far is that in some ways, they are very much alike modern children in how they act, the competitive nature I mentioned, the slightly toxic school environment of, I'm better than you, I'm going to do this first, and etc., etc. But on the other hand, they are just utterly, in some ways, unequipped to deal with these emotions. I mean, again, the only adults in their lives are military staff. They are treated as soldiers.
Yeah.
And the one father figure they have is someone that they pray to, but ultimately do not see or have a face to put to. So, holy crap. It has to be said as well, we only see the Franxx once in this entire episode, and they're not piloted, they're just in their, hangars. And I could not be happier in this instance that is the case.
Yeah.
This is an entire episode's build-up to what I imagine episode 6 is going to be the shit hitting the fan super fucking hard. And
yeah,
as I've said before, like in the previous stream of Thought we did, I want to go from one episode to the other being excited for what comes next. And up until this point, that wasn't the case. And now I am all in.
I was just going to say, I'm very unsurprised, given now what we know about Noriko Takao's body of work, that she storyboarded and directed this episode without robots, without combat.
That's fine. That is absolutely fine. The downtime sometimes in action-heavy shows can, when they've got good characters, be the best part.
I agree.
And this easily so far is the best episode of Franxx. It's actually kind of shocking how much it's improved from 4 to 5, in my opinion. And there is a closing scene in which 02... I did find this funny, actually, because...
Oh, yes. Right.
Because so it does start raining, actually, as I mentioned before, when they have the little fight, 02 and Ichigo. And I thought, well, God really does have a sense of timing, doesn't he? So she's still outside, though. And she's been outside all night, by the look of it.
It sure does, yeah. Yeah, and Hiro doesn't mention it at all. He's fine. Of course, he's got a debilitating illness to deal with. He's doing everything he can just to stand up.
Yeah, I mean, okay, chlamydia's bad, and so is, everything else.
Oh my gosh, it's an STD. I didn't even think about that.
But this is something else. I mean, it's not just his dick that's going to rot off, it's everything else.
Holy Lord.
He is utterly done for. So yeah, folks, let that be a lesson for you. Franxx is actually a story about contraception and making sure you practice safe sex. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Oh my God. Christ almighty.
I'm joking.
Is he going to put a hazmat suit on the next time he pilots? All right, we're good to go. I'm going to grab on now.
Beginning docking procedure. Oh, fucking hell. That's conjuring up some images. But yes, they meet, and 02 spots the thing, runs a hand over it. So she has some idea of what's going on.
Just laughing, frolicking through the water.
Yeah.
As the show goes to credits, gives him a chance to get out of it. This is like, are you gonna run from this like everyone else, or are you still DTF? And Hiro says, I'm DTF, baby. And then she strokes his bulging blue heart, and then frolics away. Like, yes, she I mean, it's such a hard read, that woman. She'd be a weird hang. I'm not really sure I'd want to be a part of that.
Oh, I'm just thinking of what the first date with her would be like, and I'm thinking, well, it'd definitely be the last one.
Yeah, no kidding.
I like my women eccentric and extroverted, but even disregarding the fact that she can give you blue balls that travel up and become blue body, full blue, fuck me, it just looks bad. I'll just take it from me. That's my artistic description of what Hiro's got. It looks bad. But even then, no, I don't think I could take this lady out on a date. I think she would be too much for me. But yes, that concludes the episode, and holy fuck, I could not believe it.
Give me your rating. What you got?
Well, I'm going to give Darling in the Franxx, episode 5, 4 out of 5 sexually transmitted psychoplexus nonsense diseases. 4 out of 5, easily.
Awesome.
I mean, just to remind you folks, 2.5 previously. Read whatever you want to in this arbitrary scale of arbitrariness that we've come up with here, where we just come up with nonsense days previously. But there is definitely a significant improvement. I mean, just from the way I'm talking right now and the tone I'm taking with this, I'm not angry, I'm not annoyed, I'm not snarly. I'm genuinely infused by this show. And I'm happy that that's the case. Mm-hmm. But that being said, now that it's set this standard, it's got to stick to it. And I'm praying to God that it does. I'm praying that it actually continues this standard. I mean, finally, the actual material that's going on, the writing, is on par with the direction we've seen. And the direction is just getting better. So, thank fuck for that. I'll get on my apology box. I'll prostrate myself before this show itself and say, okay, I'm sorry. As long as it meets me halfway and continues to be this good. So, whew, thank fuck for that.
Bring back Noriko Takao. don't let this be the only episode that she's involved in, please.
Noriko drinks on me if ever we meet, honestly. I'll buy you a pint.
I have nothing to add except that this episode was fucking brilliant, and I give it 5 prayers to Papa out of 5. Yeah, first ever 5 of 5 awarded on this illustrious and important and listened to show.
Wow, you actually rated this higher than any episode of MMO Junkie. That is...
I did.
Well, if you want to drop the mic now, Doc, now's as good a time as any to do it. Fuck me. Well then, folks, that's the end of Streamer 4 Episode 5. This will actually be out on Valentine's Day, so I, in my own headcanon, like to believe that is Zero Two's Valentine's Day present to Hero, the fact that he is now dying. I mean...
Oh, boy.
It's a present to me, because I just still like Twitter very much, but...
Yeah.
No, yeah. I kid. So... We will be back with episode 6 next week, as usual. And I'll hand it over to Doc to tell us all about the places that he may be found on the internet or otherwise.
Well, if you would like to chat with me about this show or anime or other nerderies, you can tweet me at The Subtle Doctor, or please send me a Curious Cat at curiousscat.me/The Subtle Doctor if you'd like a sort of in-depth reply, or to ask a question that you don't... If you don't want to make a tweet thread about your question, just Curious Cat it to me.
Excellent. You can find me on Twitter at Shaden1010 or at Curious Cat at curiouscat.me/Shade. So if you want to, send me tweets about the fact that I'm a bloody lunatic for having such a U-turn on this show, or just generally question my sanity, then I'd welcome it.
Listen, I am just happy you're not that you've not thrown out a take and you're gonna die on that hill with it. That, you know what I mean, sticking to your guns at all costs. Like, you follow the evidence and the quality where it takes you. And yeah, I think to your credit that you have said, hey, look, I hold my hands up. The show is doing great, and it just shows that you actually are invested in the media and you care about that succeeding and judging that more so than hearing the sound of your own voice or your own opinion.
Hey, if me being wrong means that this show is good, then, well, someone get a giant red marker and put a great big red X on my bald fucking forehead, because I will always happily accept I'm wrong if it means the show is actually, now getting better. I could not be happier that I have come into this particular episode of Streamer 4 with a smile on my face, as opposed to continue I did last time, where I just took the piss out of the show pretty much constantly from start to finish, with exceptions, mind you. I do think that there's still been plenty of merit in Franxx up until this point, but my problem up until this point has been the weak scripting, in my opinion, the weak writing. And now, on a fucking dime, it's just suddenly all come together. And, well, I'm in. I'm all on board. Fucking put me in a fucking Franxx, give me a plug suit. Well, I don't fucking care. I'm in. I am all on board for this show, and I could not be more excited to see what happens next week.
Excellent.
I mean, in a show about sexual metaphors, it is a bit odd that I am gushing so much, so I'll leave it on that note.
Oh, good lord. All right. On that note, everyone, we bid you adieu, take care of yourselves, and remember, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe.